You're all welcome to today's deep news breakdown. Please, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, kindly do that now and turn on the notification bell, because the story we are breaking down today is serious, sensitive, and far bigger than it first appears. What you are about to hear is not ordinary political talk. It is not social media noise. It is not rumor. This is a developing situation that touches power, diplomacy, military pride, and one of the most emotional political cases in Nigeria today.
Right, everyone, welcome to Pulse Media Services. Now, in the course of our research concerning the detained Nigeria military aircraft in Burkina Faso, and also the detained 11 men from Nigeria's military, we came across this particular video that gave a very strong condition for the release of this men. Now, this condition is so strange, and I don't know if Nigerian government definitely will work towards this condition. And this condition got to do with the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Now, this video is very, very important because it's going to help us a lot to know the importance of this man and how government should immediately act if it wants its military men and airballs to be released on time. Now, it's an extensive report which I wouldn't want you to miss if truly you want to know much about the interconnection between Nnamdi Kanu and Traore. Now, if you look at the interconnectivity between these two incidents, is about truth, justice, and about the ability for somebody to come out boldly to say the truth and come up with options that are satisfactory to people with a specific cause, which is why this video is very, very important to for you to watch to the end. So this video is all about the strategic move and the what is about to play out in the course of Nnamdi Kanu's saga and the men that were arrested by the Burkina Faso administration, military junta, for invading its territory. Now, I will leave you to this video, then I'll see you in another video.
You're all welcome to today's deep news breakdown. Please, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, kindly do that now and turn on the notification bell, because the story we are breaking down today is serious, sensitive, and far bigger than it first appears. What you are about to hear is not ordinary political talk. It is not social media noise. It is not rumor. This is a developing situation that touches power, diplomacy, military pride, and one of the most emotional political cases in Nigeria today. This story did not explode with sirens. It did not begin with shouting. It began quietly. But right now, it is growing louder by the day. Burkina Faso's military leader, Ibrahim Traore, is at the center of this storm, and his name is now being linked directly to Nnamdi Kanu. According to reports, Traore has made a firm demand in ongoing diplomatic talks, a demand that has shocked many observers, a demand tied to the release of Nnamdi Kanu. At the same time, 11 military personnel remain held in Burkina Faso. These are not civilians. They are trained men in uniform. They arrived aboard a Nigerian Air Force C-130 aircraft. The official explanation was simple at first. The aircraft made a precautionary landing on Burkina soil. Such landings happen in aviation. Nothing unusual there. But what happened next changed everything. The soldiers on board did not leave freely. They were detained. Days passed, then weeks, and now there are strong indications that the Traore government is preparing to take a harder step. That step could mean formal charges. It could mean prison. This is where the story stops being technical and starts becoming political. Because once soldiers are detained by a neighboring country, it is no longer just about safety procedures. It becomes about respect. It becomes about authority. It becomes about power. And then another layer was added to this already tense situation. Behind closed doors, as diplomatic efforts intensified, another issue reportedly entered the conversation. Not trade, not borders, not security cooperation, but Nnamdi Kanu. For Nigerians, that name carries weight. Heavy weight. Kanu'S case has been dragging on for years. It has created anger, hope, fear, and deep division. Families argue over it. Communities argue over it. Even within government circles, it is a difficult subject. So when reports began to suggest that Ibrahim Traore was linking the release of the detained soldiers to Kanu'S freedom, it sent shockwaves. This was no longer quiet diplomacy. This was pressure. Traore is not a leader known for soft language. Since coming to power, he has projected strength, bold statements, a posture of independence, a refusal to bow easily. So when his government holds on to 11 foreign military personnel, and at the same time signals interest in Kanu'S release, it changes the balance of the talks. From Burkina Faso's side, the message feels firm. We will not rush. We will not be pushed. From Nigeria's side, the silence feels careful, calculated, measured. Because Nigeria is facing two difficult realities at once. On one hand, there are Nigerian soldiers detained outside the country. Men who answered national duty. Men whose families are waiting. Men whose safety is now part of national concern. On the other hand, there is the Kanu issue. A case that already puts pressure on the Nigerian government internally. A case watched closely by the international community. A case that cannot be handled lightly. This is why this story matters. It is not just about Burkina Faso. It is not just about Nigeria. It is about how African leaders negotiate power in a changing region. It is about how military governments assert authority. It is about how far diplomacy can stretch before it snaps. For everyday Nigerians listening to this, the situation feels close. It feels personal. Because it raises uncomfortable questions. Should soldiers ever be used as leverage? Can one political case influence regional relations? And how does a country protect its image without risking its people? As of now, there is no public resolution. No dramatic announcement. No clear timeline. Only pressure. Only tension. And only silence that grows heavier each day. And this is just the beginning. Because once soldiers face the possibility of prison, and once a case like Nnamdi Kanu's is pulled into diplomatic talks, the path forward becomes narrow. One wrong move can harden positions. One delay can raise the stakes. And right now, West Africa is watching closely. This story is not finished. In fact, it is only just opening. Let us now slow down and look at this situation from a realistic angle, the way many Nigerians are looking at it right now. This is not a black and white issue. It is layered. It is sensitive. And every move carries consequences. Burkina Faso today is operating under a very different mindset. Since Ibrahim Traore took power, the country has shifted its tone. Less diplomacy. More firmness. Less patience for outside pressure. Traore presents himself as a leader who does not bow easily. He speaks the language of sovereignty. He projects strength, especially to young Africans who feel tired of weak leadership. So when the Nigerian Air Force C-130 aircraft made that precautionary landing, it entered a country that is currently very alert, very guarded, and very political. At first, the issue looked technical. A landing. A routine check. Standard procedure. But in geopolitics, nothing stays routine for long. Once the aircraft landed and the 11 military personnel were identified, the situation changed. These were not tourists. These were not aid workers. These were soldiers. And soldiers carry symbolism. In the mind of a military government, soldiers represent power. They represent security. They represent the state itself. Detaining them sends a message, whether spoken or not. Now, diplomatic communication begins. Nigeria reaches out quietly. Officials talk behind closed doors. No loud statements. No threats. This is how diplomacy works in this region. You move slowly. You test the ground. You avoid embarrassment. But days turn into weeks, and the soldiers remain detained. That is when concern turns into pressure. Within Nigeria, questions begin to rise. Why are they still there? What exactly is being discussed? And why is there so much silence? At the same time, another issue enters the background discussions. The name Nnamdi Kanu starts to appear again. This is where the situation becomes extremely delicate. Kanu is not just a detainee. He is a symbol. To his supporters, he represents resistance and injustice. To others, he represents fear of instability and division. The Nigerian government has tried to manage this case carefully, knowing how easily it can inflame emotions. So when reports suggest that Burkina Faso's leadership is raising Kanu'S case during talks, it creates a serious dilemma. Because from Traore's point of view, this is leverage. He knows Nigeria wants its soldiers back. He knows Nigeria wants to avoid public humiliation. He knows Nigeria wants stability at home. So the pressure increases, not through shouting, but through delay. Every extra day those soldiers remain detained increases tension. Every new rumor raises anxiety. For Nigerians watching from home, this feels uncomfortable. On one side, there is national pride. No country wants to look weak in front of a neighbor. On the other side, there are human lives involved. Real people. Real families. This is where emotions clash with strategy. The Traore government, meanwhile, maintains its posture. No ruse. No public apology. No quick release. Instead, signals begin to emerge. Signals that the matter may not end quietly. Signals that legal steps are being considered. Signals that prison is not off the table. And once prison is mentioned, the stakes jump sharply. At that point, this is no longer a misunderstanding. It becomes a confrontation of will. From Nigeria's perspective, any wrong move could backfire. React too aggressively, and you escalate the issue. React too softly, and you appear weak. This is the tightrope Nigerian leaders are walking. At the same time, Nigerians on the streets see the bigger picture. They ask questions that matter. Why should soldiers be held for so long after a precautionary landing? Why is Kanu'S case suddenly part of a foreign negotiation? And what does this say about regional unity in West Africa? These questions do not have easy answers. Traore supporters see him as standing firm against larger powers. They see strength. They see independence. Critics, however, see risk. They see a leader pushing boundaries that could strain relations. Nigeria, being the larger power, must calculate carefully. Not every show of strength requires noise. Sometimes silence is strategy, but silence also creates fear. As the days stretch on, pressure builds not just at diplomatic tables, but among the public. Among analysts, among families of the detained soldiers, everyone is waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for a statement, waiting for movement. And in the background, the name Nnamdi Kanu continues to hang over the talks like a shadow. This is no longer just about detention. It is about influence. It is about who blinks first. And as this chapter closes, one thing is clear. The pressure has not peaked yet. It is still rising. Because when leaders test each other's limits, the outcome is never certain. And the next move could change everything. This is the point where it stops being about discussions and starts being about decisions. By now, positions are clearer. Lines have been drawn, even if they are not announced publicly. What was once a quiet diplomatic issue has grown into a regional test of resolve. If the 11 detained soldiers are formally sent to prison, the situation changes completely. At that moment, this is no longer a delay or a misunderstanding. It becomes an action with consequences. For Nigeria, that would be a deep national shock. No country wants to see its uniformed men behind foreign bars, especially under circumstances tied to political bargaining. And for Burkina Faso, such a move would signal firmness. It would tell the region that Ibrahim Traore is willing to go further than many expect. But strength comes with risk. Once prison becomes real, trust breaks. Dialogue becomes harder. And every future conversation starts from a place of tension. This is where Nnamdi Kanu'S case becomes central again. Kanu'S detention has already tested Nigeria's legal and political system. It has strained unity. It has drawn global attention. So linking that case to an international standoff raises serious questions. Is it wise to allow a domestic legal matter to shape foreign policy? Is it safe to turn one sensitive issue into leverage for another? These are not simple questions. They are the kind leaders lose sleep over. From Traore's perspective, the calculation is cold and strategic. He understands timing. He understands symbolism. By standing firm, he strengthens his image at home. He appears fearless. He appears in control. But international pressure does not disappear. It only waits. Nigeria, on the other hand, must think long-term. This is not just about today's crisis. It is about precedent. If pressure works once, it can be tried again. If it fails, relationships could freeze. Nigeria also has its image to protect. As a regional power, every move is watched closely. Too much compromise can look like weakness. Too much force can look like arrogance. So Nigeria is trapped between pride and responsibility. Meanwhile, the human side of this story grows heavier. Those 11 soldiers remain in uncertainty. Their families wake up every day hoping for news. Silence becomes its own form of punishment. For Nigerians, this cuts deep. Because soldiers represent sacrifice. They represent service. They represent the nation. At the same time, supporters of Nnamdi Kanu continue to watch closely. For them, any sign of his possible release brings hope. Any delay brings anger. This makes the government's position even harder. Every decision risks backlash from one side or another. There is no perfect outcome. Only managed damage. And this is how crises truly work. They do not explode all at once. They tighten slowly, like a rope. As diplomatic channels continue to operate, backdoor talks likely intensify. Messages pass quietly. Warnings are sent politely. Red lines are tested gently. But patience is not endless. If Burkina Faso proceeds with prison sentences, Nigeria may be forced to respond more firmly. Not loudly, but firmly. That response could reshape cooperation. It could affect military ties. It could chill regional trust. And if Nigeria chooses to stand its ground completely, Traore's government must also calculate the cost. Because isolation carries consequences too. West Africa is already fragile. Security challenges are real. Instability spreads quickly. This is why this endgame is dangerous. Not because of war, but because of miscalculation. A single wrong step can harden attitudes for years. A single rush decision can undo decades of cooperation. And yet, leaders must decide. They cannot pause forever. As Nigerians watch this story unfold, many feel a mix of fear and frustration. Fear for the soldiers. Frustration with politics. There is also a quiet realization. This situation exposes how power really works in the region. Not through speeches, but through leverage. Not through headlines, but through pressure. And as the clock continues to tick, one truth becomes clear. This story will end in one of two ways. Either dialogue prevails, and a careful compromise is reached, or pride takes over, and the fallout spreads. There is no middle path. Whatever happens next will send a message far beyond Nigeria and Burkina Faso. It will tell smaller nations how pressure works. It will tell leaders how far they can push. And for ordinary people, it will show once again how decisions made far away can affect real lives. This is why this moment matters. This is why silence is loud. And this is why the next move will define the future of this crisis. Because in this endgame, there are no winners, only consequences.